respected Khenpo Sodargye, esteemed monks and eminent masters, distinguished members of society, and all the students from the 2 classes of Taipei University present here. We are very pleased to have you with us today, ladies and gentlemen. Khenpo Sodargye is from Larangar Five Sciences Buddhist Academy, and he has come to Taiwan to give a lecture today. He is an exceptionally outstanding religious figure, and his scholarship is truly remarkable. Up to this point, he has translated and authored around 40 books, dedicating many years to this work, covering many fields, such as the Buddhist perspective on science and its relationship to the world, Buddhist ethical values, and so on. In recent years, Khenpo has also placed great importance on giving lectures at various universities. He has lectured at Peking University and Fudan University. This time, Khenpo has come to Taiwan at the joint invitation of several universities, including Huafan University, National Taiwan University, and National Taiwan Normal University, as well as our own Taipei University, to give a series of lectures across Taiwan. Today, right here at the beautiful Sangxia campus of Taipei University, nestled in the scenic surroundings, he will be talking about life sciences and values, this topic which we will be discussing. My connection with Khenpo Rinpoche actually began as far back as the year 2002. At that time, I was at Fujian Catholic University for an international symposium. The symposium was held at Fujian Catholic University, and it focused on the relationship between religion and science. In Europe, it is as renowned as KU Leuven. It is one of the best Catholic universities in the world. So they organized this grand international symposium to explore the relationship between religion and science. And they invited me to speak for the session on Buddhism. That was in 2002. I wrote an article, which, after some time, was eventually included in my book, Buddhist Hermeneutics, published by Xinwen Fang in Taiwan and in Beijing. And in the article, I referenced Khenpo Sodargye's book called A Scientific Treatise on Buddhism, which was published in Henan in 1999. So I have long admired Khenpo from afar. It has been both an academic and a spiritual connection, truly meaningful. Today, being able to meet him in person, I must say, I feel genuinely and truly delighted and honored. So I suppose that I am actually one of Khenpo's very earliest fans in Taiwan. At least academically, I believe that's the case. Regarding Buddhism and science, this is also a very important topic in the West. That is to say, religion and science seem to be in conflict with each other. But actually, that's not entirely true. Within the Western religious tradition, over the course of history, many scholars have actually made persistent efforts to explore the dialectical relationship between religion and science. This is also an academic topic in various Western universities. Let us give a warm round of applause to welcome Khenpo to the stage to give us a lecture.
Distinguished professors and students of Taipei University present here, as well as other scholars and wise individuals, this afternoon we are gathered here to come together and thoughtfully explore life sciences as well as our perceptions on the values of humanity. Personally, I am very happy and very interested. Because just as Professor Lai actually mentioned earlier, in fact, I have not only recently become interested in this particular field today, rather, over many years, I have truly felt that my personal experiences in research and study and reflection need to be integrated and combined with many various scientific and different life perspectives. So I have spent much time exploring and researching questions about life and about values. I have also been engaged in long-term exploration and research, and today we have such a topic as well. This topic was originally proposed as a suggestion for further discussion by the professors who are part of this institution. I was happy to accept it because it's very close to my usual research. It's quite similar to the research area that I would usually explore. Of course, all of you who are seated here today may have thoughtfully considered or even deeply reflected on questions of life, or perhaps you haven't. In any case, in the 21st century, everyone cares deeply about science, as well as about their own lives and values, each in their unique ways. Science, in fact, originates from the human mind. Sometimes when we observe how people revere science, we can see that all so-called highest forms of science are invented by scientists. And scientists do not invent with their bodies, but they invent with their minds. In Buddhism, all phenomena arise from the mind, and all things are created by the mind. This is indeed very much in line with that particular concept, as we can see. At times like this, it is important for us to pause and thoughtfully examine what life truly is, considering its deeper meaning and significance. Broadly speaking, in general, so-called life includes animals and plants. But here, the life we are discussing is actually just the life of humans or animals, and not the conditions for the survival of plants or other living things that we would also commonly refer to as life. Our lives, some people believe that the lives of human beings, let's start by analyzing our human life first. If one thinks that a person has only this one lifetime, that after death, a person is completely gone, disappearing just like a lamp going out in the darkness, and nothing at all remains after leaving this world behind, then what kind of values actually arise from this perspective? It's very bad. I'm being honest today. Because this would mean our life is like an ever-changing tree, and if this tree is gone, then that's the end of it, for good. If human beings, the most advanced or most intelligent species that are found on this planet, has a worldview of only a few decades, as everybody knows, how long can a human being live? Nowadays, there aren't even that many people who live to be 100. If my values are centered around my own 100 years of life, then from that perspective, time is extremely short. Under this premise, and with this kind of belief or idea, whether we are living our daily lives or conducting research, your so-called creativity in reality may not actually have much value. Regarding this issue, all of you, especially those from the Chinese department, as well as teachers and students from other departments and disciplines, it's truly worth exploring this idea. Because it is closely related to many people's environment, education, and lifestyle, as well as the philosophies and ideas that they've carefully studied and reflected upon since childhood, many of the teachers and university students I've interacted with, their focus is only on the life right in front of them in the present moment. Apart from their immediate life, they don't have many other demands. In other words, it's just about their own survival and existence. With this kind of mindset, from my personal perspective, it seems clear to me that, to speak frankly, it probably still needs further observation. Under this kind of education, under these slogans, some people have this kind of view. For example, through engaging in the process of scientific research and inquiry, they have the idea that the human brain can be replicated on a computer. Now, some scientists, although they have made contributions to worldly knowledge, some of them believe that by studying the intricate nature of the carrier of the human brain, at a certain point, it can be replicated onto a computer. Only that this technology has not yet been fully achieved. There are people who claim this. Some people believe that certain instances of enlightenment described in Buddhism might actually be a kind of brain disorder, or that they occur due to some special property of the human brain, in particular, these kinds of claims. For those who have studied these topics for many years, on the one hand, such statements are truly laughable, but it also shows that regarding inventions and knowledge from ancient to modern scholars, whether at home or abroad, throughout history, many of these distinguished scholars' discoveries and knowledge, they may not have sufficiently understood them. If they did, then they'd know, is there a direct relationship between the human brain and our current consciousness? There is a partial relationship, but not simply a direct one. So on this issue, everyone must understand that sentient beings are any conscious living being. First, we should clarify that the mind or consciousness of a person continues on without interruption. This conclusion is very important. In Buddhism, this concept is known as what is called no beginning in the past, no end in the future. This is a method of reasoning. So how does this reasoning proceed? Our consciousness is, in fact, quite distinct from external matter and differs from it in many important ways. The cause of consciousness is essentially consciousness itself, while the conditions for consciousness may include the body, as well as the impure seeds from our parents, and various other different conditions. This is a very rigorous form of logic. Therefore, when we reason logically, we find that just like the mind we have today is today's mind produced by relying on the body, or is it made by the four great elements of earth, water, fire, and wind? It truly is absolutely impossible. So what is it produced from? My mind today actually streams from my mind last night, and yesterday's mind comes from the mind of the day before. If we keep tracing it all the way back like this, where exactly does it lead? When you were just born, the mind of the fetus, this fetal mind is connected to the Bardo state, and it continues in this way. It's a stream of continuity. This is the power of the mind. Because many scientists today have not discovered the existence of the mind's continuity, for this very reason, they will often say that all these things happen, or rather take place within the complex structure of the human brain. But if it really all happens in the human brain, then even scientifically, it is hard to justify. For example, in the Western area of the world, there is a scientist. This scientist is named Robert, a well-known researcher. After many, many long and careful years of observation over time, during the process of his research, he observed and closely examined several hundred people. All these people that he gathered had no brains. When this person first started his observations, during the course of his detailed medical experiments, based on these medical experiments, he found that out of those people, many of them had remarkably high IQs and their lives were completely normal. Some people appeared to have heads that looked a bit different from normal people. Some had small heads. At this point, when he conducted examinations, he discovered that some people had no brain at all, just a completely empty space. This information is taken from the field of science, and it comes from a book that is actually titled Science. The book, in this science book, it is explained very clearly. Later, during the process of verification, this professor indeed found that upon examination, there was no brain matter at all. Some so-called brains were extremely, extremely small, very, very tiny. In the end, he discovered hundreds of people without brains. These people without brains live completely normal everyday lives and could function perfectly well in every possible way. So this kind of discovery is still a truly astonishing finding, even today, without a doubt. Scientific research should be conducted in a fair and impartial manner. When you are conducting such fair research, you must consider now what its truly profound significance actually is and where it lies. Because in our daily lives, in general, most of us probably have very little exposure to these academic fields. Some people, after coming into this world, seem to feel that people just live their lives simply, and when they die, that's it, there's nothing more. If things were like that, I often think then a human life would be no different from that of a tree. A tree eventually withers away, a flower eventually wilts, and then eventually it's gone. A building eventually collapses, but some buildings nowadays, like some in Europe, have lasted for several hundred years. So actually, a person's lifespan is not even as long as that of a building. But in fact, that's not the case. If you truly discover the mysteries of life, this true mystery of life does not need to be found elsewhere. In Eastern culture, that is to say, in Buddhism, there are very detailed descriptions of this. These descriptions happen to be verifiable by science. Because nowadays, many people use science to verify religion. Though using science to verify religion, in most cases, shouldn't be necessary. But now, because among people, they have lost their direction and lost virtue and wisdom, for this reason, there is a need to use other means for verification. But when you do use these other methods to verify, you need to know that this kind of consciousness exists. This consciousness exists, and it is reasonable for it to exist, which I want to make absolutely clear to everyone. This kind of consciousness is different from the body. Some people might think, could this be related to other things, such as one's own beliefs, or is it connected to other legends, or some fabricated illusions? Such thoughts may also arise, and there are two ways these ideas can come about. One way is a person is stubborn and ignores reason, clinging to their own views. They refuse to accept any truth, only believing what they think. Nowadays, some people often go with their feelings. I feel this is wrong, so it's definitely unreasonable. If that's the case, then just go your own way. There's nothing more that can be done. But some people are fair-minded. At first, they thought it's unreasonable, but later, after thinking it over, they began to move in the right direction. This may happen too. So, as we just discussed, our consciousness is different from our body. I hope that on this issue, all of you will discuss it over and over again and thoroughly study it with great care. Just a couple of days ago, around November 15th, it was also mentioned in a recent news report that some scientists nowadays, these scientists had also discovered that after a person dies, not everything disappears. There is a scientific theory in the field called biocentrism, which is researched by a scientist named Lanza. After many years of observation, he discovered that the disappearance of human life isn't in fact what the usual atheism, materialism, or other schools of thought claim, as some suggest. I have also spent a long time comparing some of the viewpoints advocated by modern people. After looking at them for a long time, in fact, there is no sufficiently conclusive reason for people to believe past and future lives do not exist. It's just that many people don't really believe in it at all, or simply haven't mentioned it. If we really lay out the evidence for the existence of past and future lives and the continuation of consciousness, and if we don't have evidence to claim that that past and future lives don't exist, many of these mysterious issues are actually very valid. Of course, it's impossible for everyone to remember everything clearly, but if we refuse to acknowledge everything we can't currently remember, then similarly, when we were very young and had just come into this world, we weren't able to make sense of the conditions of being a fetus either. If you claim something doesn't exist just because you can't conceive of it now, then maybe you cried really loudly when you came into this world from your mother's womb. As the elders tend to say, when a baby comes into this world, they almost always arrive crying, not smiling. But if I refuse to accept this just because I can't remember it now, then it'd be very unreasonable. Similarly, the Buddha said that all sentient beings have a kind of fetal obscuration. Once this fetal obscuration sets in, except for extremely rare individuals, one simply cannot recall their previous life. Everyone possesses this kind of fetal obscuration. Therefore, what we must acknowledge is the existence of this stream of consciousness. There was once a scientist, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist. This scientist had, had received, the award in physics. He was given the award in physics, and he greatly admired and praised the views of another scientist whose name was Neumann. He admired his viewpoints. So what did Neumann say? Well, what he said was that besides the physical body that humans have, there's also a continuity of mind or spirit. This continuation of the mind, it has a direct influence over the human body, and so on. This scientist agreed with this view back in the 1970s. There was also a scientist who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1963. He also fully agreed that human life, apart from the physical body, has something that continues on, something that is unceasing and indestructible. I hope you can please look up some related information online. It's very important, so do this carefully. If the foundation of our values is, just these few short decades, brief and fleeting human life lived only in front of our eyes, if it's only just about this short span of time, it really is too short-sighted and unreasonable, which I often lament. Because right now we don't understand, we have no idea that there are many such truths that exist. We might need some further knowledge. For those who haven't looked into past and future lives before, I hope you can study a bit more. Today, as we're discussing the science of life, I want to focus on this. In fact, each and every one of you here have gone through countless lifetimes wandering in the cycle of samsara before arriving at today in this world. Yet we're still creating karma continuously. We're still constantly making either virtuous or unwholesome deeds. If this goes on, then because of these karmic forces, we can only continue to wander in the cycle of rebirth. There are actually astonishing stories of reincarnations. For example, there's a Khenpo at our Buddhist academy named Khenpo Saltram Ludro, and in the past, he had compiled and written a book, which was also published and made available here at the Three Vehicles Dharma Center of Larunga. I have translated this book. This book is a treatise which was called, it's called The Truth of Life. And in this book, the Khenpo presented a significant amount of current scientific evidence and also explained various reasonings on the existence of past and future lives in traditional Buddhism. The book provided a very detailed explanation of the scientific perspective on life. It's also in Taiwan. I think it's called Stories of Reincarnation in the edition of traditional Chinese. Perhaps some of you young people can't read the simplified Chinese version. But in China, it's the opposite. Some young people can't read traditional Chinese characters. Whereas here, having the traditional Chinese version might be better for you. Nowadays, if some people really want to, for example, understand its full meaning, just this one class today may not be enough for you to grasp it immediately, because it is a very profound principle. It's like in physics, regarding its micro-foundations, or some of the, most profound and fundamental principles in quantum mechanics, non-specialists may not understand them right away, even if you try to think about it. In such a short time, it's impossible to grasp the principles. But some of these profound principles still require our study. I had once seen an account of past lives called Past Lives, Stories of Reincarnation. It was very interesting, and I highly recommend everyone to give it a watch after today's session. It's a documentary. This documentary is quite important. It's called Past Lives, Stories of Reincarnation. This Past Lives, Stories of Reincarnation is actually about 3 children who can recall their past lives in their present lives. One is from Sri Lanka and 2 from the US. But the one in Sri Lanka is probably the more convincing to most people. Everyone couldn't help but believe it. I remember the main account in this documentary is from a girl called, her name is Dilukshi Nisanka. For a period of 3 years, this young girl continued talking time and again about who she believed she was in her past life. She kept on going about it, and later her parents, especially her mother, was troubled. She felt that I treated my daughter so well, but the girl didn't even see her as a mother. She said, I feel distressed, not fulfilling my responsibilities as a mother. her father was also extremely angry, and he tried very hard to stop the girl from leaving. But this girl seemed not to regard their home as her own home and kept talking about various things from her previous life. Later, her family became quite troubled and didn't know what to do. So they went to the familiar place that the girl had often mentioned to look for a respected monk in a temple. They went to seek out a monastic in the area. But the monk said he didn't know what the girl was talking about either. He didn't know about all these situations because everything she said was very detailed. She talked about the names of her parents, how she died, and how many people were in her family. She explained everything very clearly, and afterwards, the elder monk said he didn't know about it either, whether such things had happened in their area. He recommended them a journalist and said it'd be best for you to try other ways to investigate and look into it. Later, this monk contacted a local journalist in the area. The journalist noted her situation and started publishing them in the local newspaper. After the story ran in paper, the whole city was abuzz with lots of talk about the situation. People wondered if such a thing was actually real. Because nowadays, although Sri Lanka is a Buddhist country, which might be different from other places, there were still some skepticism. At this time, it just so happened that a certain family in the area saw the newspaper and was interested because a few years ago, a girl in their family had indeed passed away. Everything was the same as what the girl had said. So their family started to write a letter to the girl's family, saying that it seemed this girl was indeed from their family and that they must meet her. Then the girl's current family also came to meet with them. And when they eventually went to each other in person, it was about a 6 or 7 hours drive to the area, all things considered. And as they were slowly getting close to the city, the girl remembered the way. She knew all the roads. So while the driver was driving, she would directly tell him where to turn and how to get there. She led them to her house. Moreover, she could quite clearly recognize and identify many different things and familiar items in her past parents' house. Later on, a scientist by the name of Haraldson, who was affiliated with the University of Iceland, became involved in the research. Haraldson, at first, he also didn't believe it because he thought it might not even be possible. But later, after doing research for 7 or 5 years, he was eventually led to this family. During the process of observation, he confirmed that both families really existed. And in fact, all the things that were described, there was absolutely no fabrication or any sign of deception. So there are cases where people remember their past lives, but very rare. Many of you here, for example, may not be able to recall your past lives, but I hope you'll still take a look at this story. Maybe you don't believe it. If you don't, it's entirely up to you, because the reason that I'm here, it's not about forcing you to start believing reincarnation. I'm not here to indoctrinate or brainwash you. There isn't anything like that. It's completely okay if you don't believe in it. But you might start to have some doubts after watching this kind of documentary. You might start to wonder, what was my past life really like? Will there be another life after I die? Some people who have had childhood training in this area may be able to accept it. But untrained people, especially if it has direct clashes with their backgrounds, might not believe in it. If so, it's also good to give rise to doubts. Maybe, just perhaps, through this short documentary, these few brief words, you can see that in your mind stream, not believing in past and future lives is actually a fallacy, a mistaken view. Perhaps from now on, not only should I care about this life, but care more for my future lives as they last even longer. We know no matter how long someone lives, it's just a few decades at most. If future lives truly exists, then I need to do some good deeds. Otherwise, if I create negative karma in this life, I'll have to bear the consequences in my own future lives, which would be very pitiful. I think the relationship of karmic causes and effects is also really important in our values. Because if you don't believe in karma or past and future lives, people have asked me, when you go to many schools, why do you often talk about karma and past and future lives? I think that nowadays, especially for young people, the foundation of all values it means acknowledging past and future lives and believing in karma. If you acknowledge past and future lives and believe in karma and its effects, you will at least do good and avoid evil. At the very least, there will be a sense of restraint, fear, or vigilance in your heart. But if you don't have this, whether superficially you study Buddhism or follow a religion, it doesn't matter how kind you appear to be on the outside. So having this view is very worth contemplating on. Believing in karma and its consequences is extremely crucial. Regarding this law of karma, if we were to cite Buddhist sources as reference, I believe for most Buddhists, there's no need for further verification from Buddhist sources themselves, since all Buddhists know about past lives. But for people who aren't Buddhists, they might turn to science. So can science verify karmic causes and effects? This is actually also entirely possible. In the past, someone gifted lived in the United States. This gifted person possessed special abilities of clairvoyance. He was known by the name Casey. His special ability was that he could know about many people's past lives, and he also knew about some of these people's rather strange illnesses. Through certain acts of purification, he cured many of these complicated illnesses. For example, by sharing spiritual knowledge with the person and offering them guidance and insight through these spiritual knowledge, he was able to heal them. Later, this matter caused a huge sensation in the United States at the time. Some people said this power was fake. Others said, since he could personally reveal many unknown situations, it must be real. At Harvard University, there was a psychologist. He was called Münsterberg. He was called Münsterberg. He felt that this person's abilities was certainly a scam. He thought it impossible, and initially he completely dismissed it. But later, he became interested in learning more about it. His initial idea was to investigate this so-called special ability and then expose him and finally reveal the truth to the entire world, to everyone. He began to look into it, and during the process of his investigation, in the end, this psychologist was, without any doubt, completely won over by him. He realized that it was not as he had originally imagined. There was still a mysterious science behind it. In the end, he discovered that all those various illnesses and conditions, all these diseases that were so difficult to cure, have an effect known as the so-called boomerang effect. A boomerang means that as long as something is thrown out, once it's caught, it flies back. This is called a boomerang. He believed that, in his view, what he referred to as this so-called boomerang effect, he also admitted that these are karmic forces. We often say, this is karma manifesting. Indeed, this concept of karma is very accurate. Why is that? Because whatever you do, however you treat others in this world, in the end, the effect of those actions comes back to you. For example, if I were to kill someone right now, ultimately, the act of killing itself in this particular situation will gradually circle back to myself, and in the end, I will inevitably have to endure that pain. He gave a rather typical example. There was a woman who had an allergy since childhood for as long as she could remember. As this allergy, whatever she ate or used, many things would cause her skin problems. Later, this person with special abilities and the psychologist, after a long period of observation, discovered that in her previous life, she often harmed others with a certain chemical substance. Because of this particular karma, in her current life, she herself suffered from a variety of different skin diseases. These three people, after a long period of communication, in the end, the scientists also fully acknowledged that so-called karma does exist. Moreover, the existence of this karma can be completely explained as a kind of boomerang effect. I believe that everyone present here, if we admit that good begets good, evil begets evil, you reap what you sow. If you plant good seeds, you get good results. But if you plant bad seeds, you get bad results. there is such a very mysterious and wonderful phenomenon. Why exactly do I say this, you might wonder? Because the karma that each of you created is different, even the appearances of people from the same family are not exactly the same. And the happiness and suffering that they experience is also different. As you know, if there's a pair of twins, like two brothers or two sisters, in such cases, their parents nurture them equally when they grow up, but the happiness and suffering they each experience are completely different. A teacher's student, their grades and future paths are also completely different. So there are many things like this. If we want to elevate our values and worldviews, we should first address the things at the root. If we don't address things at the root and only shout out beautiful slogan in the moment, I'm afraid our lives may not actually change. Therefore, I hope that as we live in this world, we must not only understand the relationship of karma and its effects, but also understand the karma of past and present lives and the cycle of rebirth. We should do more good deeds, do more things that benefit sentient beings. In Buddhism, there's a concept called Mahayana Bodhicitta. It's a spirit of selflessness, an altruistic spirit. You could say everything it carries is for the sake of others. As long as it can truly help others, we should go ahead and help them. This kind of mindset is actually worth promoting in a university and is worth learning in any intellectual community. Otherwise, all we get in school is a mindset of selfishness, self-interest, personal gain, and self-serving entrepreneurship. Of course, it is good to start your own business and have personal development. They represent courage, bravery. But if we over-promote them, at some point our society and families, up to our nation and our world, would be in a state where we lose altruism in our care for others. That would be problematic. Therefore, our survival and our way of living should be about living for humanity, living for all sentient beings. In the past, the great and renowned philosopher Aristotle was once asked by some people. They asked him, what is the difference between you and ordinary people? And Aristotle replied, ordinary people live to eat, whereas I, on the other hand, simply eat to live. Wise men eat to live. That's the difference. What is the purpose of people making money? It's just to live, to simply get by in their lives. Many people make money simply to survive, to make a living so they can eat. But for those truly learned and knowledgeable, it doesn't matter how they live. Whether it's their daily life or their meals, they can get by however it is. They won't be picky on things. The main reason people come into this world is to do something meaningful. So while we need to understand some scientific knowledge, we must also understand the deepest and profound mysteries of life. Otherwise, if people become too simplistic in their thinking or far too emotionally detached from reality, on the surface, it may seem many scientific instruments and machines invented today were originally intended to give us a lot more rest by relying on these inventions. But now, as science advances, as more and more machines and technology are created, we instead become busier. For example, now that some people have mobile phones, although originally as phones help reach our friends easier, we should be getting happier, but now it seems we're getting lonelier. We begin to neglect others and become isolated. Moreover, with so many means available to us now, we should theoretically be able to accomplish a lot more things. But the more advanced science becomes, the more likely it is that we ultimately end up carrying out things that go against morality on a larger scale. So a scientist once said, as science becomes more and more advanced, it's very likely that people's hearts will become increasingly troubled. It's because our desires keep on growing stronger, and the things we pursue are becoming more and more distant from us. This is something worth exploring. Therefore, my values are that living in this world is not just about living for oneself, but also somewhat doing something meaningful for the people around us and for all other living beings. Okay, I'll leave it at that.